what you did was illegal and morally unacceptable.
Hello, my name is Crystal. Welcome to my channel. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Today we'll be taking a look at 7 News interview with Mary Kay Letourneau and Vili Fualaau. First, let's discuss a little bit of the background of these two. So Mary was married with 4 children and she was a teacher. Vili Fualaau was 12 years old and a student when they had sex. From my understanding, which does not make it right and does not really make a difference in my mind, is that she wasn't his actual teacher at the time. She used to teach him. Still disgusting. When Mary was on trial for the crime she committed against Vili, aka Sagittari Blank, she gave birth to their eldest daughter. Mary took a plea deal. She was sentenced to 6 months of jail time with 3 months suspended, and she was not to have contact with Vili. After her time in jail, she was caught with Vili. At that point, the judge revoked her plea agreement and she was sentenced to 7.5 years in prison. That is where Mary would give birth to their youngest daughter. After her prison sentence, Vili and Mary petitioned the court to have the no contact order lifted, which, I mean, they have 2 kids together. The court did agree with that, and the no contact order was ultimately lifted. Vili and Mary were married in 2005, which is basically a rundown of the backstory. Now we can get into the interview part. Now, this interview is a very uncomfortable watch. I do recommend watching it after this video. You can tell that Mary overanalyzes everything. You see the gears just turning in her head. Mary is very defensive throughout the interview, and you're really seeing her trying to deflect. Mary refuses to admit that she did something wrong, even though she had sex with a minor and had 2 children with him before he was 18. So when the interviewer asks where did they meet, Mary Kay says a lot of words, but it's a lot of nothing. She goes on to say, I don't remember. I taught his brothers and his eldest sister. When Vili was asked, it sounds like he doesn't exactly remember, but he has random memories from his childhood, and I'm assuming that means with Mary. He says that he remembers hiding in a closet in one of Mary's classrooms. Mary tried to make him say what he was doing in the closet. You could tell that he was uncomfortable. He didn't want to say it. So instead, she tells the interviewer that him and his friends would hide in the closet and wait for her to walk by to see if they could look up her skirt. I can't tell if she intentionally did it to embarrass him or if she's trying to push blame again onto him. It kind of reminds me of all the teachers that you hear about in the news nowadays, where they're getting caught having relationships with students, minors, and then they put the blame on the students, even though they're the adult. These children are the victims, and the adults in these situations try to spin all of the stories to make them sound like the victim. Vili said he initially got close to her because it was a bet. It was a bet between him and his friends to see if he would be able to get close to the teacher, to Mary. Vili says what attracted him to Mary was that she was pretty and they had a lot of similarities in hobbies, which they seemed to bond a lot over art. But then he says that he realized they had a lot of similar life views. What similarity of life views do you have with a 13-year-old as a 34-year-old woman? What could they possibly have in common to make this grown woman sexually attracted to this child? When the interview then asks Mary what attracted her to the relationship, she continues to clarify that she was not his teacher, that he was not her student at the time. And then she goes on and on and on to complain about how everyone connects them as student and teacher. In the media and the newspapers, everyone's always talking about how they're a student-teacher relationship, which they are. I don't care if he wasn't your student at the time, if he was not in your homeroom, he is still a student at the school that you teach at. Mary then goes on to tell the interviewer that she gets uncomfortable when he asks when they first met, because it leads people back to the student-teacher narrative. When Mary was asked if she had any moral problems with pursuing this relationship with Vili, really entertaining a child, she tries to push the blame back on Vili, saying he didn't understand that I had 4 children and responsibilities. Why would he understand those responsibilities? Again, he is a child. These teachers like to groom these children, and then when they get caught, they like to turn it around and say, oh, I was just going along with it. This was all the child's idea. take some accountability for your role in the relationship.
There's no doubt in my mind that the adults are not starting their relationships. They're grooming these children, they're preying on them, they see the vulnerability and they just attack. The next part of the interview really irks me. Mary was trying to say that there was no laws in place at the time of her and Billy's relationship, and that because of her situation with Billy, laws were then put in place. Even though we all know there is and has been a law for Sagittary blank for a long time. She says that certain laws were gender specific. She's certain that the Sagittary blank laws were only in place for men because past offenders were mainly males. She thinks that her situation is what made it equal for women. During this time, she's clearly agitated with the interviewer because she doesn't want to admit he's right. She doesn't want to admit that what she did was illegal, even though she went to prison for what she did, because it's a crime. So get this, Mary said no one announced it. No one announced that the Sagittary blank law now includes women. She thinks that it needs to be broadcasted everywhere, worldwide, or I guess in this case, the United States. Everyone needs to be made aware that this law is equal and not gender specific. Ma'am. Ma'am, stop acting foolish. Like, come on. This is really her living in a different reality. She's living in her own reality. I think to her core, she really thinks she did nothing wrong. And the interviewer keeps calling her out, and I love it. He says, come on, you knew what you did was illegal and morally unacceptable. And I could imagine being in the interviewer's shoes. It must feel like pulling teeth just to get any answers from Mary. Billy was asked if he could go back in time, would he still take the steps he did to get where he was today? As in, would he still be in a relationship with Mary? And I think that since they have 2 kids, it's very hard to answer because I think most people would agree he loves his daughters. He doesn't want a world without them. And he said that there's things he would have changed. He said that he really thought about this question a lot, but at the end of the day, he just isn't sure. Now, I'm wondering if he didn't want to be fully honest because Mary was there and he didn't want to upset her, didn't want to hurt her feelings, or if this is truly his answer. One thing that Billy said that really stuck out, if the roles were reversed, he would not pursue a 13-year-old girl. He said he wouldn't be able to do what Mary did. During the interview, Billy is actually 35, which is just 1 year older than Mary was when they first started their relationship. Billy said he has daughters and he can't imagine being romantically attracted to a 13-year-old. The interviewer then asked Mary, was that hard to hear? Because this is the same situation. And she is in Delulu world and thinks that this is nothing like her situation. And again, this is what I mean that she's living in her own reality, because anyone else can see that these are the same situations that they're talking about. He, as a 35-year-old man, cannot find a 13-year-old girl attractive, but she, as a 34 female, could find a 12-year-old boy attractive. She continues to say throughout the whole interview that she did not pursue him, that it was always him expressing his undenying love for her, and that he was always chasing her, essentially. And again, I've said this a lot, but as a 13-year-old, compared to the adult, a 34-year-old woman, I don't care what she says, she pursued him in my mind. Let me know what you think, because it's wild that all these people are out here always blaming the kid. Another interesting part of this interview is when the interviewer asks about PDF files, and Mary Kay thinks that PDF files are only attracted to prepubescent children. She doesn't think a 13-year-old counts as a child in that sense. And her reasoning is because 13-year-olds are sleeping with other 13-year-olds. To me, her logic makes no sense. I'm not sure how a 13-year-old does not count as Sagittary blank. Again, her reality is not the real world. But then Mary just keeps talking in circles and circles and circles and really says nothing at all. When the interviewer asked if they were still in love, it got very awkward. Mary did say anyone who is married would understand that there's a labor of love. She said that that saying is there for a reason. I've personally been married for a few months, but from speaking to other married couples, Marriage is really about continuing to fall in love with each other through growth individually as well as a unit. And I hope that who you marry today is not the same person 10 years down the line. You would hope that together you would continue to evolve, learn new things, create new adventures, new memories. But marriage is work, right? It's not a walk in the park. And it's really about continuing to choose your husband or wife every day, through the good and through the bad times. Loving someone and being in love with someone are not the same. It's very different. The awkwardness when the interviewer asks if they're in love leads me to believe that they might still love each other but not be in love with each other. They could necessarily not be in a good place. I mean, you gotta watch it because it's very uncomfortable. Now, this interview was recorded in 2018. In 2019, they separated. Mary was diagnosed with colon cancer, and when it started to progress and spread, Billy did go back and help take care of her until she ultimately passed away on July 6, 2020, at the age of 58. There was a video of Billy on the Dr. Oz show after Mary's passing, and I cried the entire time. It's very emotional, but if you're very invested in this, I would recommend checking it out after watching this interview. He does speak about how they were best friends. They did have a family together, and when she passed, it was him, their youngest daughter, and the youngest daughter from her first marriage. Billy is now in a new relationship and welcomed his third daughter in 2022 and became a grandfather in 2024. I'm interested on hearing your opinion of this whole situation down below. That's all I got for you today. I hope you have a great day. Bye. By the way, I just have to say, aren't these beautiful? My husband brought them for me and he's my editor, so thanks, hubby.